Hello, everybody. Welcome to the San Diego Festival of Books Meet the Author Q&A series. My name is Pam Cragen. I'm a restaurant, theater, arts, and human interest feature writer for the San Diego Union-Tribune. And I am very pleased to be hosting a session today. Today's session is a special treat because I'll have a chance to visit with two top-rated San Diego cookbook authors, Kelly Senyei and Sam Zine. Kelly Senyei is the founder of the food site Just a Taste, which garners millions of readers a month. She is also a chef, a mother of 3 young boys, and the author of the Secret Ingredient Cookbook, 125 family-friendly recipes with surprisingly tasty twists. I'll also be chatting with Sam Zine, who's better known locally and nationally as Sam the Cooking Guy. He is a multi-award-winning TV host, a YouTube star with nearly 3 million subscribers, a restaurateur, and also a father of 3 boys as well, although his sons are grown. With his cooking, he takes a simple approach to creating culinary masterpieces for the non-professional chef, and he is the author of Sam the Cooking Guy, recipes with intentional leftovers. Sorry about that.
Oh, good. It's all good.
For the next 30 minutes, they'll share with us some culinary trends and practical approaches to meals and get us to think outside the box, answering the question, what's for dinner? One thing I can say is that home cooking has never been so delicious and so easy with these 2 chefs. After talking with Kelly and Sam for a bit, I will take a few minutes to answer your questions, which you can submit through our Facebook chat. Now let's get cooking with our chefs. I'm going to start the conversation first with going back and forth with you, alternating the questions, and I'm going to ask that you keep your answers, a couple minutes or shorter, just so we can get through all of the questions. Okay, so let's start with a question for Sam. Sam, you and I have known each other for several years, and I know you came to the career of cooking in a very roundabout way, first working in the pharmaceutical industry in Vancouver, and then leaving that to start a TV cooking career, which was derailed in a crazy way back in 2001. Can you, I'm sorry, not 2001, but anyway, please tell me a little bit about your background and how you got into becoming Sam the Cooking Guy.
Yeah, thanks, Pam. Nice to see you, even just digitally. So, look, I do think that I was, and certainly way back then, like so many people, I had no clue what I wanted to do when I grew up. I mean, literally no clue. I followed one of my brother's path in advertising, and that was okay, but it didn't really hold anything in my heart. And one of his clients started a frozen yogurt business, and we went into that, and that didn't hold any special place in my heart for me. I ended up in real estate, sold a house to a guy. He started a biotech company. He asked me if I'd come work for him. I did. I was there 8 years. 2 of the years were really fantastic, and then the other 5, this whole 3 bears, I can't get comfortable in a bed thing came up again. And I know I'm not alone in this. I know so many people, when I talk publicly, ask this question because they're not happy with what they do. And I literally was sitting in my office one day at the biotech company. I said, I'm miserable here. What would I do if nothing mattered? If I didn't have to make money or tell people what I did for a living and have to be responsible and stuff, what would I want to do? And I had this very quick idea about starting a travel show. Not quite the opposite of the lifestyles of the rich and famous, but sort of how to go someplace that you thought might be complicated, you didn't think you could do. I quit my job before I could shoot anything. 9/11 happened. That changed a lot of things for everybody. I'm trying to be mindful of your 2-minute comment. And sitting in my family room one day watching TV, literally the week following 9/11, I watched what I have said I still believe is the worst cooking segment I've ever seen on KUSI. Local station if you're not watching locally. And I said, oh my God, that's horrible. Somebody should do that better. And literally the light bulb went on. My wife came home that day. I go, okay, it's not going to be travel. It's going to be cooking. She goes, great idea, honey, except one thing. I go, what? She goes, you absolutely can't cook. And I go, See, this is the genius part of me. I will make things that are simple. I'll be my own weakest link. People watching will be, if that clown can make it, I certainly can. And that was the beginning, almost 20 years ago now. Started with
I'm sorry, Kelly, you also had a different route kind of into this, although you've always been interested in food before you started Just a Taste in 2008, including a culinary degree and work at Food Network. So can you run down for us a little bit about your background before you came to Just a Taste?
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me today too, Pam. This is a blast, Sam. It's so great. I know we're like mere miles apart from each other, but thrilled to do this virtually regardless. I had a really slow and steady intro into the world of food media. I went to the Columbia Journalism School for Broadcast Television, always anticipating going into a career in political reporting. So I really had the kind of like meat and potatoes, pun intended, hard journalism background. I was reporting on my beat in Hunts Point in the South Bronx. I was like an actual legit reporter out there finding the stories. And I just realized that I wanted to report on something that was very uplifting, something that everybody could relate to. And so that's why I kind of diverted from political reporting to going into food, because I felt everybody could have an opinion about it. It's something that brings people together. It's really a universal language. Any country, even if you don't speak the language, you can relate to through taste and through flavor and all of those things. So I love that it was such a unifying theme for the entire universe. So I ended up going to culinary school in New York and then doing the stage in the Food Network kitchens. And then I launched Gourmet Live, which was the digital version of Gourmet Magazine at Condé Nast. We had a great 2-year run, and then I ended up staying on at our sister site, Epicurious, and doing recipe development and food writing and on-air reporting for them as well. And the whole time I had started Just a Taste, which is my website, as kind of a side hobby. And it was just growing and growing and growing. And I became incredibly passionate about it and just decided my dad's an amazing entrepreneur. If I ever was going to be my own boss, that was the time to do it. So 2013, I ended up leaving Condé Nast and pursuing Just a Taste full time. And it was the best decision I ever made. So now I get to host on Food Network Kitchen, and I'm on E, and wrote this cookbook that just came out in May, which we're going to chat about. And most importantly, am a mom to 3 little boys. So Sam, we've got the 3-boy thing in common, and among many other things. So I'm very much in the mom mode right now, but it's really fun to kind of balance motherhood with pursuing my passion. And Sam hit the nail on the head, like just doing something that you love. And for me, it was being able to work from home also so that I could be around my kids too.
Got it. Kelly, you wrote that your great-grandmother inspired the name Just a Taste. Can you explain?
Yes, my great-grandmother Mamu, who was an unbelievable home cook, did all of the canning. She was just like the ultimate, made everything from scratch. She would say that there was always room for dessert. No matter what, there was always room for just a taste of dessert. So I was in the middle of writing my grad school thesis, procrastinating at like 3 o'clock in the morning, not wanting to work on it, and decided to start jotting down names for sites that I was going to launch. And that just came to mind, and it stuck. 13 years later, here we are.
Got it. And Sam, you have admitted that you were not a very good cook when this all started. But tell me about how your love for food began.
Well, honestly, it was out of necessity. I'd quit my job to try this travel thing. That didn't work out. And so when I came up with this idea for cooking, it wasn't because I was a good cook. It was because there appeared to be an opening, at least on local television, for somebody doing interesting. The cooking segment I watched was a local chef who could probably kick my ass all over a kitchen, but his goal in life was serious cooking. He was not an entertainer. He was not very exciting to watch. The anchors were not very interesting to watch. He was using creme fraiche. They didn't know what it was. They couldn't pronounce it. It was just bad. So I said, what if somebody just got on there and made simple things that, instead of watching this guy's complicated stuff that would only make you hungry and make you want to go out to eat, you watched and you went, that looks good, but it also looks like something I could actually pull off. I'm going to try that. So that was it. So really, Pam, my stuff in the beginning was really basic, very simple, a lot of already ready ingredients, deli roasted chicken from the supermarket, that kind of stuff. I mean, I haven't used the deli roasted chicken in years. And as I have grown with my own skills, my audience is following along as well. So I think they'd be okay if I used the deli roasted chicken, but they would like to see how to cook their own chicken, which is in the book, that kind of thing. But so still nothing is complicated. I'm not using foie gras or truffles or anything like that. I'm doing things people can make at home. My audience is predominantly male. Of the almost now 3 million, almost 85% are guys between 18 and 40. So I really feel like I'm filling a spot in the world of teaching these people how to cook, so they don't have to have fast food. They don't have to order out and be at the mercy of what a restaurant can provide for them, or worse, fast food.
Got it. So Kelly, can you explain to me the inspiration for the secret ingredient cookbook?
Absolutely. So I'm always trying to put a fun, different spin on things. Having gone through culinary school and cooked in professional kitchens for years, I think it really expands your palate. It expands your mind. And one day I was deciding I was going to make chocolate chip cookies, but I was running out of butter. So I decided to grab some cream cheese and sub it in as well. And it turned into the secret ingredient chocolate chip cookies that are super chewy and moist in the center. And then they taper off into these really crispy edges. And I put them up on Just a Taste. I called them secret ingredient chocolate chip cookies. Long story, very short. Years and years later, millions of people around the world have made this recipe. It will knock your socks off. It is hands down the best chocolate chip cookie recipe you will ever make. And what's really cool is it has that surprising twist to it. So when I decided to do the book, debut cookbook, I decided it was going to be based off of the secret ingredient theme. So each of the 125 family-friendly recipes have a really surprising twist to them, whether it's mac and cheese made with pumpkin puree or a strawberry galette made with balsamic vinegar. Just really fun, creative twists on classic recipes that most importantly are family friendly. Easy but impressive is the whole goal. So it should look like it took you 2 hours to make, but it really just took 20 minutes.
And you should add that the chocolate chip cookie recipe is in the book, right? So
it is, yes, it is. It's in the book, and it's called The Chocolate Chip Cookie Recipe, and it's just the best. There's nothing better than a warm chocolate chip cookie straight from the oven, and these are incredible. They get a little tanginess from that cream cheese, but they're just the best, and that's what launched the entire book.
Got it. And then Sam, Recipes with Intentional Leftovers is, I believe, your fourth cookbook. And your cookbooks are a bit unconventional in style. I think your first book was called Just a Bunch of Recipes. So tell me about the inspiration behind this new cookbook.
You know what? Honestly, Pam, I changed the way I've cooked over the past few years. I've said this a bunch of times. I mean, I'm not proud of saying that I used to be somebody that would make a bunch of stuff. And then if I got bored of eating it a certain way, if you make a whole bunch of chicken parts, after a couple of days, you're sick of eating chicken. I wouldn't think, what else could I do with it? I'd give it away, or I'd throw it away. Worse, not proud, but still, that was me. I would use a head of parsley, half of it, and then it would sit there, and I wouldn't do anything else with it. And something in the past few years changed, and now I've started going, well, wait a minute. If I can make a steak, and there's a beautiful reverse sear steak in the book, sort of the classic wall-to-wall, top-to-bottom, end-to-end, perfect medium rare all the way through, no gray band. You got to be able to do other things with that steak. And so the video that I shot for the festival is me showing you how to make a beautiful, perfect steak in the oven, and then turning it into a Thai beef stir-fry that's really delicious. And some of my friends have been like, dude, I never have any steak left. I go, well, because you're just not thinking properly. Especially if they're on sale, you need 2 for dinner, buy a third one, and then use it the next night. But it's like that. It's like how to make perfect hard-boiled eggs, and then what to do with them after, how to roast a chicken, and what turn them into empanadas and stuff like that, make a pizza out of them. Or what to do with a leftover pizza that you've made. And there's some silly recipes in there, sort of a frittata-esque thing, using this leftover pizza or pizza and eggs, that kind of thing. But it's just thinking, the goal is people shouldn't think about eating food exactly the same way all the time. People do this. If it's Tuesday, I'm making Aunt Ruth's chicken. I'm like, oh, great. But that gets boring after, you cover a couple of weeks of 2 or 3 different dishes every couple of weeks. So replace one of those Aunt Ruth chicken ingredients and make something else. You don't grow unless you push yourself. And that's kind of the goal.
Mm-hmm. Talking about the preparing these books to go to press, Kelly, I was amazed by the shopping and the testing and the driving around and giving the recipes out to me, just the process you go through in order to make these recipes just right. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Was that something that you learned when you were working for the test kitchens?
Yes, absolutely. I think when you come up with like a formal training in culinary, and then I've worked in so many test kitchens and developed recipes for magazines and websites and all that, making sure that recipes are easily replicated time and time again so that home cooks that don't have a formal background or maybe haven't made a roast chicken 10 times know exactly what they're going to get and how they're going to get to that successful point every single time. So each of the 125 recipes were tested multiple times by home cooks across the country. And I wanted to have home cooks test the recipes and not professional chefs, because they're able to pick up on little nuances here and there of things that maybe I take for granted being a professional chef that they wouldn't necessarily know to do. And so that way it really helped clarify the recipes. It really helped to break it down too into like the basics of like how you get from A to B. So all of the recipes were so rigorously tested. And then of course we shot the book in New York right before the pandemic and everything started. So went through a whole nother round of testing with professional chefs in New York, then also when the book was shot. And so it's just every single recipe in this book you could make 10 times and get the exact same result 10 times. And that's the goal. If you're going to spend money and time on ingredients and away from your family to cook them a meal, I want to make sure that you get a perfect result every time.
Got it. And Sam, for your cookbook, when you were talking about these intentional leftovers and how you wrote this book, you have like 4 or 5 recipes for every one of your parent recipes. And how long did this take you to develop these different ideas for all these different dishes?
You know, I think this book, my last book was probably 8 years ago, maybe. So I've had time. I've had a lot of thinking. This one is literally, you know, there's the testing part and there's all that, but this was really thinking, okay, I'm going to show people how to make Kahlua pork. Great. And now what are you going to do, you know, once you've got that? And so we turn it into a really good breakfast hash, sliders, this Kahlua pork Benedict. There's something that I've been making for an awful long time, just not with the Kahlua pork, you know, but doing a pork out on my smoke or something and making chili keyless out of that. I think it's really fun to have extra things in your arsenal so you don't stare at a piece of meat the same way all the time and go, God, now I'm bored. There's a salmon recipe in the book. It's called chili salmon. It's my wife Kelly's absolute favorite. She asks for it once a week, once every, 2 weeks for sure. But then what do you do with it? So we turn that into a great salad or a great avo toast. So there's a soup that I was turned on to when we shot in Finland a few years ago, this salmon soup that starts with raw salmon in the soup. But there's nothing that says you can't take already cooked salmon, put it in, and have it still be delicious. You just cook it a little less time. And then, you know, it's stuff like that. So it's thinking, it's what would I like? And really, the stuff that we shoot on for our YouTube channel, that literally are things that I like to make. I won't make stuff just because I've run out of ideas on a particular shoot day and come up with something dopey. The stuff that we make, we like all the time. And so far, so good. Our audience has found a home making these things too.
Got it. Now, if people buy these cookbooks, I'm going to ask you, Kelly, what are some of the secret ingredients that people should have in their pantry before they open up the secret ingredient cookbook? And
this is a great question, Pam. I'm so glad you asked this, because I think the perception is with the secret ingredients that they're really hard to find, or they're expensive, or, you know, they're going to be something that you use one time and then never use again. But that's absolutely not the case. All of the secret ingredients are readily available at any grocery store. And I actually did so much research that if you couldn't find the ingredient on Walmart.com, it didn't end up in the book. Because to me, access to ingredients, whether you live on the coast, in the middle of the country, in the middle of nowhere, in a big city, is so important, because I want these recipes in the book to be accessible to everyone. So examples of secret ingredients are like balsamic vinegar, avocados, rosemary. I mean, just normal everyday ingredients, just used in creative new ways. So like my pie dough is actually made with rosemary. I have a chicken Caesar pasta salad, and the base of the dressing, rather than mayonnaise, which is traditional for a Caesar salad, is actually avocado. So you still get that fatty creaminess, but it's courtesy of an avocado. Breakfast, I did a California breakfast queso quesadilla, and frozen tater tots are the secret ingredient instead of French fries, which are traditional in like a California style carne asada burrito. So just really easy, accessible ingredients, just used in creative new ways.
Got it. Thank you. And Sam, you had talked about how the majority of your YouTube audience, it's a lot of men who are cooking, and they're not going to necessarily have a fully stocked pantry with all kinds of things. Tell me, what are some of the essentials that you have in your pantry that you think people, should have if they're going to be cooking with the recipes with intentional leftovers?
One of my favorite tips for people is a couple Asian condiments or other people's condiments literally can change your whole food lineup just like that. A little black bean sauce, simple thing in a jar, hoisin in a jar, or some of the, the chili crunch, those kinds of things. I do lean towards the Asian world for a lot of the things that I like to make personally. And when I tell people, you pick up a couple of those things, and I think you'll be really surprised at what it can do. It's interesting, what Kelly said in the beginning and about wanting to make sure that the stuff was always at Walmart. One of the things that I tried to do in the beginning was be as different to Martha Stewart style as possible. And look, I'm a fan of Martha Stewart. I think she's really made an amazing career that nobody wanted to give her. She had to fight like hell to get her concept on TV. And then, of course, she's done very well with it. But she would do things like this. Okay, now I'm going to use this Bulgarian stone ground mountain pepper. You need like a quarter teaspoon of it. But let me tell you, it makes such a difference to the end result in this dish. Like, where the hell do you get Bulgarian stone, pepper? You can't do that stuff. So these things, there's nothing weird like Kelly. Everything you can get pretty much from a regular Western supermarket. And these Asian ingredients that I'm so fond of, my supermarket's got.
I couldn't agree more, Sam. It's all of the Asian condiments. And I think people are nervous to cook with them, Pam, because maybe they haven't used them before. But like in my house, hoisin is equivalent to ketchup. Like my boys that are 4, 3, and 10 months now, like hoisin goes on everything. And it's just like introducing those flavors at a young age, I think, as a mom too. And just to anybody that's maybe not familiar, and encouraging them just to try them. And then your mind just kind of goes and goes and goes in terms of like which ways you can use them in creative new ways.
Yeah, I think one of your secret ingredients is fish sauce, which
yes, and my Brussels sprouts. Yeah, there's a restaurant in Austin, Texas called Uchiko, and they have some of the best Brussels sprouts in the country, and they're actually flash fried. And then I make what's called a savory caramel, and fish sauce is the base of that savory caramel. So it's sweet, it's salty, it's tangy, it's a little spicy. It sounds crazy, and it's one of those ingredients that people are like, no chance. Fish sauce, nope, wouldn't go near it, wouldn't touch it, wouldn't taste it. But once you know to pair it with brown sugar and lime juice and crushed red pepper flakes, this whole flavor profile comes together, and it's unbelievable. It's one of my favorite recipes in the book, and I love that it's such a polarizing ingredient because most people wouldn't go near fish sauce normally.
Right. Well, I think people don't know what fish sauce is, so they might think that's something you have to make from fish guts, but you can buy it.
Every major grocery store, Walmart, Target, Whole Foods, like you name it, it's in that aisle and you can grab it.
Right. First of all, Sam, tell me, what is your favorite recipe? It sounds like the chili salmon is a favorite for your wife, but what is your favorite recipe in the cookbook?
I mean, I'm looking at it right now. There's a couple things. I'm a big fan of a Benedict. There's a couple different Benedicts in here. I think it would probably be my last meal. But if I had to pick one, I think I'm going to go with the chili salmon. And I'll just flip over all the cards now and tell you that it's Asian chili oil, sesame oil that you can either buy separately or you can buy together, and salmon. And that's it. It really is. Yeah, there's a garnish of, green onion and stuff like that. But what you can do with those two ingredients and salmon, honestly, is kind of mind-blowing. And I always make extra because the next day, room temp or even still a little bit cold on a salad, world's best thing ever. Or then you take some of the extra on the third day, mix it with a little Japanese mayo, maybe a bit of onion. And now you've got something to go on crackers or like salmon salad to go in a sandwich. And think about it. It's good fat. It's good for you. You can eat a ton of it. So I like the health aspect of it. I love the taste of it. And I love how many different ways you can cook salmon, and this is maybe my favorite way. I
And
keep
I was looking at your cookbook, and it looks like once you make this sesame chili salmon, you can make Asian salmon salad with it, sesame chili salmon avo toast, Finnish salmon soup, and salmon BLT sliders. So you get a lot out of one dish.
A weird combination, I think, that sound not so good, but go together gorgeously.
Got it. So tell me about your favorite recipe in your book, Kelly.
I'm definitely like a meat and potatoes kind of girl. I love like thick, hearty things. I also love make ahead things because as a mom, I'm crazy busy all the time and working nonstop. So there's a cheesy pot pie that has cheddar drop biscuits on top. The secret ingredient is actually chipotle and adobo. So you get like just a touch of heat in it. And speaking of store-bought rotisserie chicken, it actually starts with a rotisserie chicken. You could absolutely roast your own, but it's those kind of like store-bought shortcuts too that I think really help like bring the dish and really make it approachable to people too. So the chicken pot pie would be one. I mentioned the Caesar pasta salad. There's a ton of great breakfast ones. There's actually a pancake recipe with strawberry syrup, and the secret ingredient in these pancakes is actually champagne. So if you think about like tempura traditionally has a carbonated beverage in it, like a club soda, that helps aerate the batter, and all that carbonation helps make the batter really light and really crispy. And if you use that same sort of principle when you're making pancakes, I sub out part of the liquids for champagne, and you get these incredibly light, tender, moist pancakes with a little bit of crisp around the edges, and they are so good. And you've already opened the bottle of champagne, so you can make a mimosa on the side. So I'm kind of following Sam's guide here. I'm doing like a 2 things with one. One bottle of champagne, Sam, I can do like 12 things with.
I know. Look, if people need, here's what I think is the best part of cookbook. Is the ideas, is a push in a direction you might thought of before. We do find the same things far too often, and especially with little kids. We both have 3 boys. Mine are a lot bigger than yours, Arkel. But you know, they ask for the same things. They ask for their favorite, and if you don't push them, you're gonna raise boring little pain in the butt eater. You can't do that. The thing you do when a kid says, I don't like that, you go, oh, sweetheart, we're gonna like it. We're trying right now. Let's get it on. You know?
I could not agree more. We believe in very, very palates in our house, and you have to try everything once. And same thing with like packing school lunches and everything like that. Like you have to try something once. If you don't like it, that's fine, but you've got to try it at least so you know, because otherwise you'll never learn to like new foods.
Exactly.
So both of you have millions of followers online, and I'm wondering, first I'll ask you, Sam, what are some of the most asked questions you receive from your followers?
Your house, who cooks all the food, what camera do you guys do, how do you not weigh 1,000 pounds? They're pretty, you know, I mean, look, my life is, honestly, Cam, is an open book. I've been on TV so long, and it's what you see. It's the same person. Well, you know, I'm the same person on camera as I am off. And so I think the questions tend to be sometimes personal. Who does this? How's your family doing? People want to know things. I mean, this watch gets almost as many questions as at the house, or the ovens, or knives, or what kind of equipment you want to use. It's crazy. YouTube makes a very different relationship. It's very personal, and because I do find out, and it's not a Food Network. That kind of thing. I think in my case, they feel like they know me. We leave mistakes in. It's always been something that it's something I think people have watched and gone, you can make mistakes, and I can't. It's okay to screw up. Of course, it happens to all of us. Kelly happens to me all the time. Happens to me more than her, probably, because she's a professional with an education in this thing. But the questions really come from all over the board.
Got it. Okay. And Kelly, tell me the same thing. What do you hear most from your family?
Yeah, very similar to Sam. I think because we're such a utilitarian site, we have over 1,300 recipes and get between 70 to 100,000 people to the site every day. So a lot of the questions and comments we get on the site and across social is like ingredient substitution questions, like I don't have this, can I use that? Or can you guide me on this step? And every recipe on justataste.com too has step-by-step photos in addition to videos. So if they're really visual learners, they can really track their progress through a recipe, which is super helpful. Also, why do you not weigh 1,000 pounds? Who eats all of the food? Do your kids actually eat this? Who does the dishes? All of those sorts of things. How do you come up with this? Why did you come up with this? Like across the board.
Mm-hmm. Have you guys ever had recipe disasters?
My God, more than I could count. I have a whole rejects folder on my laptop here of hundreds of recipes that I'm just going to have to go back to the drawing board for. But to Sam's point, like I mess up all the time. That was the fun of writing the secret ingredient cookbook too. It's like I tried so many things that just did not work. I will never forget. My husband was on a Zoom call for work and I just ran into his home office. This was like mid-pandemic and I squirted something from a straw into his mouth. We were doing the cocktails chapter and like, I love cocktails. I love wine. Like I'm a total beverage girl. And, he trusts me. So he goes, and I was like, ooh, that was not good. That was not a good one. I was trying to do a pickle juice margarita and do pickle juice as a secret ingredient. It did not work at all. Like the flavor balance wasn't there. So pickle juice ended up in my Bloody Mary mix, which is in the book too, in the cocktails chapter here. And so you get that like salty brininess with the acidity of the tomatoes, and the margarita ended up getting like a smoked cumin syrup instead with some fresh strawberries. So it ended up working itself out, but I've got a whole folder, hundreds of recipes that have just totally fallen flat. But if you don't try weird things and experiment, then you're just going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. Like Sam suggested, it's like eating the same thing over and over again. I don't want to cook the same thing over and over again because I get bored of it.
Right. That makes sense.
My third cookbook I wrote at the beginning, cooking is like riding a bike. The more you do it, the better you get. The reality is everything is like riding a bike. But in the beginning, nobody could ride a bike, and now everybody can because of this little thing called practice, and you tried it again. It's like that with cooking. People will say, I can't cook. And I go, I don't think it's that you can't cook. I think it's that you don't cook. You've tried to make something. God forbid it was some overly complicated thing from Emeril Lagasse or Martha Stewart that had 75 ingredients to it, and you failed like many people would, and you assumed that meant you did not have the ability to cook. There is no cooking gene. Everybody can cook. It's really following directions. That's what it is. Now, you may not become a very sophisticated chef making up crazy, ridiculous stuff, but yeah, everybody can cook. So just cook more, do it.
Got it. During the pandemic, when almost everybody was at home, I'm curious how your worlds changed in terms of interacting with your followers. I'm assuming there was a lot more people at home cooking, and it probably impacted both of your lives and businesses. So, Kelly, what did you see during the pandemic?
Yeah, our traffic skyrocketed, and honestly, it's really stayed at that level, which has been miraculous. But I think that we've really got a whole new readership based off of people that were now cooking out of necessity. Whereas before, when we weren't in the pandemic, you could go out, you could order takeout, but like, I don't know about you guys, but like we couldn't DoorDash at certain points. Like there were no restaurants open for months at an end. So people were cooking out of necessity. And I think a lot of people have kind of maintained that and have learned to enjoy it. But there's 3 words I will say that completely like catapulted our online traffic success. And it's no yeast bread. I don't know if you remember way back in the pandemic, there was a run on yeast. Everybody was making sourdough. It was like a whole thing. So one night I was just thinking, how can we help people make bread? They can't even get to the stores, but maybe they have flour, but they don't have yeast. So I came up with this no yeast bread recipe that takes 10 minutes to make. And it just exploded on the internet, and we did like 5 flavor variations. It turned into cinnamon rolls and pizza dough and burger buns. And it was just kind of this evolution of a very simple idea, but giving people a solution to a problem that they had in that moment. And we've retained so many of those people as loyal readers as a result, I think, of just that concept of giving something to them that they so desperately needed in that moment.
And what about you, Sam?
Yes, audience went way up. Interactions went way up, way more comments, way more questions. And we started the pandemic when our restaurants closed. We used one of them. quarantine cooking video. So we did probably 7 or 8. I can't remember, and they were great. And it was literally how to make stuff with maybe the handful of staples that you have in your home, that kind of stuff. People really like them, but after however many we did, we went, I don't know that people need to be reminded that we're in this pandemic, and I'm cooking in like a labor camp in outside of Siberia someplace. I cook in my home. Most of the stuff is in our backyard. It's lovely. It's lush. It's green. I've got everything to cook on there. So now I'm taking that and we're cooking inside a stainless steel, not tacos kitchen that was not very exciting. Didn't look. And finally we said, you know what? Screw it. Let's continue on, but we won't make crazy things, but we'll let people look at what we look like regularly cooking. Give them what they've always enjoyed from us. So we just did it. Not in that ugly Siberia quarantine looking environment.
Got it. I'm going to ask you guys one more question before we go to our audience Q&A portion, and that is, do you guys have any advice for your fans who love to cook and might want to do their own online cooking show or podcast or cookbook? Kelly.
Absolutely. The number one tip of advice I give to everybody is don't wait for everything to be perfect to jump into this industry. I think there's so much competition, there's so much saturation, but if you wait till your site is perfect or you have a certain amount of episodes recorded or, followers on social media before you really go public with things, I think you're never going to get in here and just like get your hands dirty and just see what it's all about. So I always tell people, don't wait for it to be perfect. Just start, because once you start, things really snowball in a great way. And always reach out to other people that you want as mentors in the space, because I certainly did that 13 years ago. Some of the top food writers in the country and on-air personalities, and everybody is so willing to share and use us as resources.
Got it.
I think that's a good point. I think, yes, to Kelly's point, if you wait, nothing's going to happen. It's going to take longer because you're never going to be perfect. But I think more important than starting that way is that you don't know how you're going to be, if you're going to be any good, until you start actually doing it. My first time on camera, I was horrifying, like really bad, stage fright, no smiling, no personality. It was really awful. And thank God one guy saw something in me and said he was going to put me on TV. But people, they want to start their own food channels, or whatever, how to fix gardening equipment. Until you get in front of a camera and turn the on and start, don't know if you're getting good at all. And it may take you time to get to that spot, like it took me to start to be comfortable. But if you're waiting, you just got to dive in. You really do. It has to happen. And by the way, I just heard this. I think YouTube said there are no more cooking show channels left to go on YouTube. So I think I got the last one. So go into another business. Don't try.
Good advice. Good advice. Well, I believe we have some questions coming from the audience. All right. This is a question from Pamela Rezo. Are there any chefs that you admire? Kelly?
Absolutely. You want me to jump in first, Pam? Sure. So I grew up watching Ina Garten, reading her cookbooks. I was 5-6 years old reading Ina Garten cookbooks instead of reading, comic books and kids books. So she's always been a huge idol to me. Just her whole approach to entertaining, to cooking. Her recipes are so tried and truly perfect. I mean, you can open any one of her books, cook it, and know you're going to get a great result. So I love that about her. I've followed every, chef in the game for years and years and years. And I think it's just fun drawing inspiration from all of them. But I'd say overall ethos and brand and just inspiration-wise, Ina is number one for me.
Got it.
Okay, could we be honest for just a second? Aren't you a little tired of Ina doing everything for sweet, lovely Jeffrey? And Jeffrey,
I love Jeffrey. I love him.
Pretending to surprise at the picnic that she's laid out for him. I mean, come on.
I love them. I'm sorry. I love them. I love their relationship. I love everything about them. I know what she has gone through to get to this place in the industry, and I admire her for that. I'm all for it.
I'm not taking anything away from her. I just think a little less Jeffrey, maybe once could say, I'm just tired of Jeffrey. We had a fight making this for him. I'm now making it for me, and he's not getting any. Liked Jamie Oliver. I think his very casual style I really like. I think that's cool. I'm a fan of Ming Tsai. He's not really around that much anymore. He used to be on Food Network, and he's gone. Maybe on PBS now. But old school Julia Child and Graham Kerr, the Galloping Gourmet, that only a few people in this audience will be old enough to remember. But their style was very much, if something didn't work, they dealt with it. They didn't cut it out and pretend like it never happened. And that's me to a T. If I drop something or break something or cut myself or burn myself, we leave that stuff in. And it's not necessarily for a comedic effect. It's just because that's real life in a kitchen. I've always said it's a real cooking show, as real as I can make it without like staging anything. If I fake anything, it's because I'm dressed up like Rachel Ray or, or one of those guys.
Or Jeffrey.
Or Jeffrey.
Do we have another question? This is from Libby Becker. What is the most unique recipe in each of your books? We'll start with Sam.
Gosh, come on, no.
I know, I gotta look, I'm looking. Great question, Libby.
The cover while I'm looking at it. The most unique, I think so. There's a ricotta, bacon, and arugula pizza. We show you how to make that. And then we make a frittata out of it in this thing called pizza eggs. I think a pizza lasagna, using the slices of the pizza that already have cheese, of meats, in between layers of sauce and stuff to make this faux kind of, but super delicious lasagna. I think that's probably the most unique one.
It's a good one.
And I just had a duh moment because it's the one that I recorded for the festival here that I did a demo for. It is my sweet and spicy penne arrabbiata, which is an amazing Italian spicy tomato sauce. But I would say every recipe in the Secret Ingredient Cookbook is kind of like a little bit abnormal, which is what makes it so much fun. But the secret ingredient in my arrabbiata is actually strawberries. So you get this combination of the sweetness and the natural pectin from strawberries, which helps create this really thick, jammy sauce that's naturally sweetened from the fruit. It pairs perfectly with the tomatoes. It's got a little bit of heat to it, and it's like perfectly balanced. It slow cooks for 90 minutes, and it's amazing.
See, look, than I am. You've got all this culinary education. I don't believe I ever said the word ever. let alone.
We all have our strengths, Sam. I'm a huge nerd. I study everything. I research everything. I try everything. Like, I'm just one of those people. I'm driven by numbers. I'm driven by data. I'm a total nerd when it comes to cooking.
I got it. I like it, though. I like it a lot.
Our next question is from Dorsey Rose. She sent this in from a reader. I've seen a write-up calling San Diego the flip-flop fine dining culture. What do you see as the new San Diego cuisine trends?
By the way,
where's your flip-flop? I see your flip-flop.
Kelly, you want to go?
No, you go first, Sam, and then I've got a few thoughts on this because I love dining out.
I know the question refers to what's going on in restaurants and stuff like that. I mean, I think the biggest trend right now is people cooking at home. I think that should continue. I hope it continues forever. I do think we're getting better with seafood. I shot in New Zealand a bunch of years ago and absolutely blown away by the amount of seafood, stuff I'd never seen before in the supermarket, and regular everyday people grabbing it like they were grabbing a can of corn off the shelf. Scallops still with the roe attached to it, that here people would run screaming out of the store, have no idea what it was. But I do think we're starting to get a better sense of what comes out of the ocean, how we can do it, not just a piece of salmon, but all kinds of other things to round out our seafood life. So for me, that's it. I mean, as close as I can get.
And I think too, just in terms of general trends with restaurants in San Diego, is we're seeing a lot of more pop-ups, which I lived in New York for 6 years, and pop-ups were like very much a thing back then. And I think we're obviously delayed from East Coast in terms of cuisine, but I think chefs are willing to experiment a lot more with these temporary kind of restaurant setups to kind of test out concepts and test out dishes and see if things work. But obviously I'm following my two main guys here in San Diego, Richard Blaze and Brian Malarkey, at all times, just seeing what they're doing next at Juniper and at Urban Wood, and just everything that these guys come up with is so creative and so much fun to watch, and they experiment like crazy too. So I always love drawing inspiration from their menus too.
I should add that Sam actually has some ghost kitchen concepts that he's developed right now. So he's trying things out himself.
Yeah.
We have 2 locations of Samburgers now that started off as a little pandemic ghost pop-up, and did so right now 2 real spots, and it's
a great way to test out concepts, to test out dishes. And I think San Diego's finally kind of getting on that train and realizing, okay, we don't need to fully commit to brick and mortar. We can do these carts or trucks or whatever it may be, and then kind of roll them into bigger things.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think we've got time for one more question. This is from Jared Whitlock. And the question is, there are so many cookbooks. How did you each carve out your unique angle? I think we kind of covered that.
I love this question. I'm going to jump in first, Pam. I sat on this concept for 8 years for the Secret Ingredient Cookbook before I actually pursued it. And every day that went by, I would be looking on Amazon, making sure that nobody had done the Secret Ingredient Cookbook, because I was so obsessed with this concept and this idea, but I never made it a priority. So I was constantly watching, seeing which books were coming out and praying that nobody would do this idea. And all in, start to finish, writing a cookbook, Sam knows this, it's like pretty much a 2-year commitment. So once I decided on this angle and the proposal and it was bought and all of that, it was just like full steam ahead in terms of knowing that this was going to be the niche. Everything was going to be really family friendly, 30 minutes or less, but have these really fun twists using ordinary ingredients. And that's how I cook at home, because I don't want to keep making the same things over and over. So it's really natural for me to then turn that into a whole big project and get 125 recipes out of it.
I think I sort of said this came out of the way that I sort of changed how I was cooking myself. I hadn't planned on another cookbook until I was approached by a publisher in New York, and when he said, "Would you like to?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Do you have any ideas?" I went, I've had this thing on my home page on my computer, a file for a long time. And I do think that it could be something that would work. And when I explained the concept, 20 master recipes, and then each one follows with 4 or 5 other ways to make something not the exact same way, he was like, "Wow, I really like the idea. Let's chat more about it." Recipes with Intentional Leftovers was born.
Well, that's all the time we have for audience questions. And I want to thank you, Sam and Kelly, for joining us today. It was wonderful having you, and enjoy talking about Kelly's Secret Ingredient Cookbook and Sam the Cooking Guy's recipes with intentional leftovers. Tune in to the Festival of Books on August 21st as we go into the kitchen to prepare a recipe from their latest book. You can order both books through the Festival of Books bookstore. The link is noted below. Purchasing the books through the Festival Bookstore supports our independent bookseller partners and keeps our local businesses thriving. Don't miss our final Meet the Authors Q&A on August 5th with the Pulitzer Prize winning author Viet Thanh Nguyen discussing his latest novel, The Committed. Summer is here, and we are weeks away from the 2021 San Diego Union-Tribune Festival of Books on August 21st. This year, the festival is delivered as virtual experiences with an incredible lineup of award-winning poets, authors, and storytellers. Thank you both. It was a pleasure speaking with you both, and good luck with your new cookbooks.
Thank you so much, Pam. Great to see you, Sam.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.